Ever since the creepypasta boom of 2012-ish, the idea of a haunted, possessed video game has always fascinated me deeply, something that is supposed to bring comfort and happiness being perverted by malevolent forces. Fan games have taken advantage of that many times, and if any of you are ROM hackers or fan game creators and you value my opinion or input for whatever reason, I'm gonna tell you right now, the two easiest ways to get my attention is to either make a beta recreation or make a creepy horror thing, which is probably why I love B3313 so much, because it's both of those. But I've also played a lot of others like SM64.Z64, Special for You, and Coronation Day. These are all mods of otherwise benign games that turn them into something ghoulish and often frightening. Today's topic is a Doom game, and Doom already had horror elements of its own, so how do you turn Doom into a horror game when by some definitions it already was? Well, let's just say that MyHouse.wad takes a different approach to horror, opting instead for a psychological angle rather than a grotesque, ultra-gory angle, although there's some of that too, don't you worry. Doom modding has been popular for decades now, and allegedly this was an expansion of an age-old mod made by a person who tragically died not long ago. The creator was a friend of said person who claims in a readme file that came with the game to have suffered from insomnia and paranoia as development continued, with the game shape-shifting on the fly and making him go insane. He even put in all these warnings urging against playing the game. So just understand that I had to ignore all of those in order to make this video. As you can imagine, this instantly hooked me with the creepypasta angle. Of course, what you gotta remember is that with most creepypasta, it's just words on a web page. If you're lucky, it's well written, but most of the time it's just Sonic bleeding and screaming loudly while eating a hyper-realistic chili dog. When you actually have a tangible piece of media to interact with, it adds a whole lot more credence to the story. Now, because of the way this game works, it's very difficult to review it without big spoilers, and while I don't intend to spoil literally everything in this video, I'm gonna give you the SparkNotes version of my first playthrough, along with some footage of other areas and scenarios. This game has numerous endings, so keep in mind that this video is not the entire game. I'm pretty confident that I haven't yet found everything in this game, so even if I did show you every second I recorded, there would still be things you haven't seen if you choose to play it yourself. And if you are curious about this game and intent on playing it yourself, I still would recommend a blind playthrough before watching this video, but if you have no intention of playing this, or you do but you don't think the spoilers will ruin it for you, well, come on in. Just remember to wipe your feet. MyHouse.wad is a seemingly ever-changing game that plays tricks on the player and has a very bizarre and esoteric gameplay loop, and for these reasons it is very difficult to explain. Although there are hints and clues concerning the truth of its narrative and intentions, there is a lot that is open to interpretation. So just to give you an idea of how weird this game is, I'm going to recount my first playthrough. My first experience with this game was almost entirely blind. I enter the house, shoot the demons, collect the keys, leave the house, and then notice upon leaving that there are now windows and the demons that I just got done killing have all come back to life. At this point the game had my curiosity, so I killed all the demons again, slowly realizing that the house is slightly different as though it was renovated. The most horrifying detail of all was that the PS1 was replaced by an Xbox Series X. That's the scariest part of the game. I walk around this increasingly complex house until I find the blue skull that's required to leave the front gate. Pretty straightforward, I think. So I go back down to the main floor, only to find that the exit that was once there is no longer there. And that's when the game got my attention. I end up scrambling all over the place trying to figure out what the hell was happening until I stumble upon a device in the boiler room that says the word escape. I press the device, which reveals an outline on the wall. I fall through it into the dimension of concrete apartment complexes. Shadowy figures watch me from lighted windows, quickly scurrying away when they get caught. And in the darkness, in the silence, a lone dog yelps out, completely harmless. Then after exploring for a bit, I find myself in a larger version of the same complex, And where there was once a dog, there is now a snarling two-headed dog-like beast. I empty my ammunition into it, just barely surviving the encounter, only to find that doing so killed the innocent dog in the smaller version of the building, as though my very mind has played a very convincing trick on me, transforming a docile, loyal creature into a vicious, cold-blooded predator, forcing me to kill it in the process. I descend deeper still into the rabbit hole, and stumble upon an empty airport. Gift shops with Ghostbusters and Harry Potter t-shirts grab my attention, things from my childhood. I enter the flight hall to find myself on an airplane. I touch the controls unwittingly, and the plane is now about to crash. I jump out of the plane and wake up, back in the house, which is now completely empty. I exit the house, which immediately disappears, and has seemingly been sold. The bad ending. Was it a dream? Did I die? Was it all a winding mind palace of memories flashing before my eyes? To exit the stage is to accept my death? Since this game has been blowing up for about a month now, a lot of observations have already been made. I've seen comparisons to other games like Silent Hill PT, the comparison mostly on the grounds that the game has a bizarre conspiracy theorist tier order of operations in order to get anything to happen. I'm talking about things like stepping on a toilet so you can walk through a mirror to an alternate dimension. I'm talking about turning on every sink in the house so you can flood the bathtub, jump into the bathtub, swim down, swim back up, flood the entire house, then go down to the basement and return to find your house has been transformed into a maze of pools and showers. Then you have to enter the next area through a square hole in the pool that you probably didn't even see because the room is extremely dark. Collecting 2 items to get access to a ball pit and a Shrek-themed daycare. The only real bad thing about this style of storytelling is that you basically cannot see all of the weirdo shit the game has to offer without looking up a walkthrough. It is incredibly easy to think that you're following the rules the right way and then get stuck somewhere because you missed a very small step that you didn't realize was actually very important. But because the highly cryptic nature is a very fundamental part of the experience, it's kinda stupid to judge this game on the same metrics of playability that I use to judge others. Really, the success of this game from the standpoint of horror, at least for me, is how effectively it utilizes naturalistic locations. Most of the places that you see in this game are ubiquitous places that we all remember from various stages of our lives. The elaborate house with the boiler room, the playground, the daycare, the airport, airplane, bathrooms, highways in the trees, campfires, gas stations in the middle of the night, accompanying convenience stores. These places, now devoid of human life and earthly logic, take on the form of liminal spaces. It's a very dreamlike world where you know what everything is, but it never feels right. And then you have to fight Shrek at the playground, and he's fucking terrifying. Whatever the meaning of that is. MyHouse.wad is the perfect example of how to do a horror game. It leverages everything perfectly, starting with the false pretense of security, gradually lifting the veil, disempowerment, confusion. It really does make you feel like a scared idiot in a world of someone else's making, and I love it. And because this game got me in a horror mood, tomorrow we're going to be looking at a couple of horror fan games, but they're just a tiny bit, and I do mean a tiny bit more tangible this time. But more on that later. Good night.